Hello, hello. This is Isabel Tierney. Happy Thursday. I am so excited to be here for my weekly Thursday live, the Feel Good Live. I am the CEO and the founder of the Stress Reset and Feel Good Life methodology. And Esmeralda is here this morning, and I just love opening the doors, right? The metaphoric doors to the room. Hello, good morning, Raven, and welcoming you all in. I know that you guys all know that I have been really loving these Thursday Facebook Lives because I know they are not just of service to you, but they are also of service to me because I really want to impart something. I want to impact. And it invites me to go deeper into the teachings that I share with you that I wouldn't otherwise necessarily do in such an organized way. Good morning, Cindy. Everybody let me know hello so that I can start seeing the streaming of your presence. And as you come into the space, let me know on a 1 to 10, 10 being all the way green zone. Good morning, Marsha. I know for you it's afternoon. On a 1 to 10, 10 being all the way green. You're open, you're relaxed, you feel inspired, you might feel very curious. Thank you, Esmeralda. Good morning, Matt Crafton. 1 to 10. How are you this morning? 1 is you are in full fight or flight, red zone mode. And maybe this talk this morning will really serve you because I'm so freaking excited. We're going to talk about anger. Good morning, Mary. Raven, 4 out of 10. Marva, good morning, Marva. 8. Cindy, 8. Kara is joining us, 7. Kara feeling a little tense and overwhelmed at work. Well, hopefully being with each other will help shift all of our feel-good levels because to me, and this may or may not feel true for you, but I imagine it has some resonance, just coming together for these Thursday lives, and then for some of you for Sacred Sundays as well, just coming together with a group of people who are dedicated to their wholeness, right? Like, I think you guys might know this. I say this a lot, that to heal doesn't mean I'm going to not have this and I'm not going to be angry anymore and I'm not going to be jealous and I'm not going to be sad. I'm just going to be happy and peppy and rainbows and unicorns. Well, that is not what it means to be human, right? What it means to be human is to be able to be with all the turbulent things and the joyous things that arise and to be able to navigate them from the green zone in a grounded, curious, peaceful, even sometimes humorous or grateful way. Good morning, Chrysanthi. Esmeralda is at a 10. Matthew, you're in the red, but I know exactly why, and a clear path and plan out of it. I love that. Right? Because when we do more and more of this work, we don't get freaked out if we do enter the red zone because A, we know what to do about it, right? We know the 3 steps of the methodology, and then we get to practice them. And it's literally never hopeless. Never, never hopeless. So Marsha is at a 9. Esmeralda, I think I said, is at a 10. Chrysanthi is 7. Good morning, Joanne. Yes, I was going to watch the replay, but this will make my day better for me and my team. I love that. Oh, I love that. You know, I think you all know that we have been teaching this work to this incredible hard-based construction company in Phoenix, Arizona named Wilmang. And to watch, we are at week 4. It's one of the reasons I decided to do this live today on anger. I was literally just on Tuesday teaching them about emotions and how to do emotions in the green zone. But I just want you to know the way It's a pilot, right? They're doing a pilot for this company to see if they want to bring the work to their whole company, which I think is like 500 people. And just in 3 weeks, the way these people have changed in their capacity to become aware of their stress, their capacity to slow down and breathe and do something else, do a feel-good habit instead of their usual reactive ways. Like, I want to cry every single time that they catch me and Philip and Joni up on their week, because this work works, right? So today I'm going to get started on today's talk, which is how to relate to anger. Instead of the red zone, right, the stress response, we're going to shift to how to relate to it from the green zone. This work works if you work it. So you can show up to every Thursday, but if you don't practice the work, you ain't gonna get anything. It's like if you were to watch a really, 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 really good workout video, you got really inspired watching the coach tell you what to do and what stretches to do, and then you didn't do anything all week. Well, it's not gonna work. Good morning, Victoria. Good morning, Maureen. 6, 7, I had a 9, Joanne. Esmeralda shifted to a 10.10. Good morning, Sammy Tierney. Do you see that I'm wearing your necklace again? The new necklace, so I'm doing it because I wanted to show you how grateful I am and how much I love you. So I know I'm grateful that you're here too, Victoria. So let us get started. And really, this first part of the teaching, as always, right? The first part of any of our Thursdays begin with like, what's the pain point, right? What's the red zone experience of the thing that we're talking about? And then the second half of the call is what's the green zone experience? What's the new way of relating to the thing we're talking about? So we are talking about anger today. Wow. It was like, I could even feel it. Just the momentum of knowing that the energy of anger, right? Emotions are energy in motion. Anger is one of the most potent energy emotions there is, because anger is supposed to have us act, take action. So it has a lot of momentum. And so when we don't know how to deal with this potent energy in motion that we call anger, we can literally use it to destroy ourselves and others, right? And I want you to think of like the consequences. What has anger, how has the unskillful use of anger impacted you? Because they're skillful, the green zone way, and unskillful, the red zone way. So I'd love to start hearing, because I always teach better when I get you guys to relate to me, to talk to me, to tell me your experience. So while you guys are doing that, like, what has been your relationship to anger and what have the consequences been? So start writing that. I'll have a sip of water. So my history with anger. I wrote a little bit about it this morning. So I grew up in a household where the primary caregiver was very angry all the time. And whether that anger manifested externally towards me, primarily out of all the kids, or whether it manifested internally, you could just feel it. You know when somebody's angry, you can just feel it, like the whole room is weighed by it. So anger was like one of the defining states of being of my childhood, of the caregivers that raised me. My caregiver's husband was a man who was kind all day long, but then he drank at night. He was an alcoholic. And then I could hear, like, that's when he'd get angry, and he would get angry at her. And I was in the room next to theirs, and I would hear him many nights a week. They would just get into raging fights, and he would hit her. And I just remember being in my room, you know, a little girl, and just so, my nervous system so wound up and so constricted with that anger. So that was one piece, right? And what is your experience of having anger around you, right? So let me see what you're saying up until now. So Maureen says shut down. So I'm just going to read it without even reading the names. Anger has impacted my partner so greatly that he doesn't feel safe in our relationship. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Never gets resolved, right? Because it gets shut down. When anger gets shut down, it can't get resolved. This energy in motion gets shut down, frozen. I squash anger and then I get sick, right? The more we get that anger or even grief, joy, all of our emotions are supposed to move. They're supposed to move. But if we don't know how to move them skillfully and we take them inward, we squash it, we freeze them, or we discharge them, and we're going to talk about that more in a minute, and inflict so much damage, it's not going to resolve the issue well. I've used anger to protect myself from others and stay distant, to avoid feeling sadness, to blame and hurt myself. Yes, thank you. My mother was the only one allowed to get angry. Thank you. I was going to say that next, so I'll pause for a moment from reading and I'll go back. So anger all around me, especially with my caregiver, but we, the kids, were not allowed to get angry. And if we got angry, the anger that came upon us, especially me again, for some reason, well, I don't know what she projected onto me. You know, my siblings all say this. I was the one most abused out of all the kids. There were 3 other kids there. And so I couldn't express anger. And the thing is, I had so much anger as the years progressed of my growing up because this caregiver put rules upon me that were so unfair. She controlled this household. She controlled me, and she wanted me to live in a box about this big, when actually who I am is a box that's way bigger than that. So everything that I did, every task that I did was not good enough. When I spoke, it was not right enough. There was the constant controlling. And before we get taught not to feel anger, that anger is bad, we get mad. We get mad at the unfairness. We get mad when our parents tell us no. We get mad. It's normal. But if you have been taught not to feel it and you get punishment, then you start learning to distort this anger and to either take it against yourself or, one of the things is I would take it against my little brother, right? Because this anger, this energy in motion has to go somewhere. Unexpressed, unfelt energy in motion of anger has to go somewhere. So it's either going to go inward or it's going to go outward. My sister and I were terrified, of course, right? So terror, so anger, the connection of anger, like what are your different connections? Like anger is to me, right? Anger is terrifying. Anger is bad. Write some of your core beliefs that you learned about anger. My parents fought all the time. I felt I needed to fix it, right? So we become the pleaser and appeasers. How do we get this anger to stop? But we never check in with ourselves to see how we are. Same as Marsha. Before the work, I was an in-charger. Yeah, so let's talk about that, what Mary's talking about. So I've been talking about 2 ways when we can't feel our anger in a skillful, healthy way. We do it two red zone ways. One is we discharge it at others. There's so much energy that comes with anger. We don't know what to do with it. We explode. It's one of the reasons I love the triangle of the feel-good scale so much, because the green zone is spacious and open, and that's how I'm going to teach you how to be with your anger. But what most of us have been taught and do is we constrict against our anger. Anger is not good. Anger is dangerous, whatever it is. And so we blow up at others, right? I blew up. I don't know what happened to me. I blew up. We discharge it. And then what Mary was describing, describing is we in charge it. I invented that word, right? It's the opposite of discharge, is we take that charge inward, and we hurt ourselves with it. So let me give you some examples of discharge. Discharge includes yelling. So check out which ones you are. I'm going to go slow. And know something. You might discharge at some people and actually in charge with others. So for example, I would discharge at Brian, but I would in charge against everybody else. I would take it when I was angry at anybody else, I would take it against myself. And for me, one of the ways that my anger, unfelt, unexpressed, in charged anger expressed itself was through my eating disorder. I think you all know, and maybe there's some new people you might not know yet, I had the binge purge cycle. I was bulimic. And I'm telling you something, there is no doubt that one of the core states of being expressed in a binge and purge episode is anger. So that's the way I did it mostly. And then I would take it out towards Brian, especially in the later of our marriage. Just my mother was allowed to be angry. My mother was rageaholic. Yes, we get abused. We got abused if we dare to get angry, right? I mean, and for those of us, which I imagine is everybody watching this live and watching the replay, watching this work, learning this work, we're all pretty damn intuitive human beings. And the incongruence, I'm a little confused. You get to be angry, but I get punished. Can you see how much more anger that could create in our systems? So I'm going to keep slowing it down. That's the thing. I'm not angry, but we're talking about anger. Anger is a very powerful force. It's a very powerful force. And we know this. Anger can kill 10 million more people when you think about World War II, World War I. Most wars are driven by anger. Domestic violence, rape, like all violence at its core. Well, okay, I'm going to say most violence because, of course, nothing is ever black and white. But anger can kill. Anger can destroy marriages. Anger can destroy families. Anger can destroy countries. Now, anger, that same potent force, when used skillfully, can heal the planet. I always think of people like Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King. Jesus, I know at one point, I know there's one story of his overturning the tables at the temple. I don't know much about the Bible, so my apologies for if I'm not saying it right. But I always look at these figures that have changed the world, these people, these human beings that have changed the world. And it is anger and the desire to solve injustice that allowed them to do that. So anger on its own is neutral. It's how we use anger. So this is really important. I want to say this again, because if you, like me, have been taught all kinds of things about anger. Anger is bad. Anger is dangerous. Women can't be angry. What are some of your stories about anger? I want to see if you're telling me, because I know anger. Anger is sin. Oof, wow, I really feel that one. And you know, it's funny, like I feel teary reading that is because it's energy in motion. It is consciousness in motion. It is just as sacred, if I were to use that word, as joy. It is energy in motion, but that moves through our systems in a certain way. We're going to talk about that. That is different than joy, is different than love, and makes it harder to process skillfully, especially because of all the teachings. You know, kids, before they're taught that anger is bad, you know, I'm not talking when they hit, But they can move through anger before they're taught all the stories around anger. You can teach a kid to be responsible with their anger without telling them that anger is bad, right? You can teach them to use it skillfully, to say no, right? So anger has been thought as rude and selfish. I used to in charge and now I have health issues. Yeah. Yelling. Yeah. Disordered eating. Yeah. In charge always until after menopause with the ones I love. Yeah. Yeller with the ones I love. I was afraid to show my anger as a child. Anger isn't ladylike. Oh, you could get me going on a whole thing. Before doing my presentation to Wilmang on Tuesday, I went into a rabbit hole about the difference, the gender difference. And it's like study after study after study after study tells us that women have been taught that anger is bad, that we're not supposed to feel anger, we're not supposed to express anger, we're bitches if we're angry. But you know what? And that, again, these are studies, this is not always true, but that men who have, with anger, they're considered confident and powerful. So, let me slow that down, repeat. Anger on its own is neutral. Anger, when unskillfully used from the red zone, we constrict against it, then the only two choices are to discharge it at others or in-charge it at ourselves. Got it? So why, right? I always say it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So why is how you have related up until now with anger not your fault? Well, there's three reasons. One, you've never been taught. We've been talking so far all morning, at least many of us. We've been taught what anger is. Well, other people can feel angry, man can feel angry, anger is sinful, anger is bad, if you're angry, you're a bitch, like all the things. So start paying attention this week. What have you been taught? What have you ingested? What have you ingested about anger that has become a core belief that guides you still today? Even from stuff we learned when we were 5, when we were 7 years old. So number one, we've never been taught. School doesn't teach us. We get timeouts. Parents don't teach us, right? And then related to that, if nobody teaches us, right, explicitly, right? Like nobody says, hey, honey, let me sit you down and teach you about anger and how to be with anger. So that's an explicit teaching. Then we learn implicitly, meaning we track the environment and we notice what other people are doing, and we either say, I ain't never gonna do that, or we internalize it and do the exact same thing, right? And it's almost impossible not to internalize. Even, like, have any of you felt this experience where you swore you would never be angry like mom, dad, teacher, and then you found yourself with certain people or certain triggers being exactly like them? Will you put a thumbs up if that's something you found while I look? Rumination of negative thoughts. Oh yeah, I mean, anger feeds upon itself, and we're going to talk about why my solution is the best of all in my experience, is because of the fact that the emotion of anger gets maintained and sustained by ruminating thoughts that feeds it. And then we feel more anger. And then the more anger gives us more thoughts. And then more thoughts gives us more anger. So yeah, great point. Yeah, angry Black women stereotypes. It's a big one. It's a big one that I keep hearing about and learning about. And it's like the double whammy, right, of the stereotype. There's like the angry woman, and then there's the angry Black woman. So thank you for sharing. That would be me. Yeah, so you guys resonate that you swore. I mean, I remember swearing that I would never be like my caregiver in the way she raised us. And then I remember when my second daughter was born, she was really difficult for the first couple of years of her life. They called her Tiger in the hospital because she just screamed for the first 48 hours we were there. And I would just lose it sometimes, just lose it. I never was violent towards her, but like the anger that I felt. And I was so stunned because I had so believed that I would never, ever be an angry person, right? Not realizing at that point that my bulimia was a constant exercise in rage. Do you know how much you have to be angry to stuff food down your body and then throw it up? Like it is a violent act. But I, A, didn't realize that that was driven by anger. And B, even if once I did, it was like, well, as long as I hurt myself, it's not as bad. Like the horror came to me about my anger is when I started feeling it towards others. Does that make sense to you? It's like we're willing to hurt ourselves sometimes, some of us, more than to hurt others, right? Like somehow it feels more sinful if we continue to use that word. Bursts of anger at children a generation later, right? We can't be the recipients of anger as children when we are undefended, when we are not yet, we don't have systems put into place to cover ourselves up and protect ourselves and put barriers and defenses. So anger, when we are children, just lands on us, gets metabolized, absorbed by us. There's nothing to stop it. We love these caregivers. And boom, and boom, and boom. And so if you don't learn to skillfully be with that anger and know, so right, there's two types of anger. There's anger we have stored from the past. And that is the one that's so dangerous, right? Because it builds up and builds up over a lifetime. And then we discharge it or incharge it all kinds of ways. And then there's like present moment anger, which is easier, especially once you know how to do it. It's less violent because it doesn't have a lifetime of momentum behind it. And I know, I believe that each and every one of us in this group is deeply committed to create heaven on earth, if you want to call it that, or to be peaceful, loving human beings. And I know the hopelessness and the helplessness that arises, that in spite of your strongest conscious intention, this anger still leaks out, still hurts others. For years, I saw anger ruin my brother and father's lives. They would use anger over anything else to get what they want. Oh, yeah. It's like if you throw a temper tantrum, right? Like if you throw a temper tantrum, especially when you're an adult and you have power over, right? Throwing a temper tantrum will often get you what you want. And if it works, why stop it? Sammy writes, that's why I'm the best daughter. So Sam is my oldest daughter. And with Sammy, I was so believing that I was so the opposite of the parenting that I had been raised with. Because with Sammy, you could say, honey, do you want the blue coat or the white coat? And Sammy would say, the blue coat. And I'd be like, I had just finished my master's in child development. And so I knew all the tricks to have children, be good children. And she managed that perfectly. And then when Galen was born, if you'd say, honey, do you want the blue shirt, the blue coat, or the white coat? I want the red coat. Like none of the parenting tricks that I had worked. And that's what then, of course, just triggered this anger of the hopelessness and the helplessness, because anger so often is driven by helplessness. You believe that anger annihilates. Yeah, anger can annihilate, like literally. And even if we don't have a gun and kill people with that anger, again, we as children are so incredibly vulnerable. And even as grown-ups, for many of us, anger just goes right to our hearts. It's so potent. I think sometimes our big emotions, like the Harry Potter wand, and or like even the Star Wars wand, and we've been given these wands that are so powerful, but nobody knows how to use it. And so we're like this. So think about doing that with anger. You have this incredible potent energy, but you don't know how to use it. And so I want you to imagine this light beam that's like cutting plants, like cutting people, cutting heads off. Hopeless, helpless. My kids never saw the anger, let alone how to deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Because I had a client yesterday who was so upset because her husband had discharged anger at their kids. And she was crying and she was saying, Isabel, I have spent my whole parental life making sure that my children never experience the anger that I grew up with. And with my husband yesterday, you know, he was like, he ruined it. Those was not really her words. But what I said to her was, honey, well, I didn't call her honey. What I said to her was, your children are going to have to deal with anger at some point. We can't protect them from anger. It's actually, I don't think, a disservice. I'm not saying be angry on purpose, but being like a household that never has experiences anger or talks about anger or teaches about anger, that's not helpful either. And I said, invite your husband to repair. Invite your husband to explain to his kids, their older kids, like what drove him to the red zone and how he could have done it differently. Like teach them the anatomy of anger and teach them how to repair, use it as one of, and I said, this can be one of the most potent lessons you can teach your children. You know, we can sit on the couch and we can talk about anger or grief or whatever. But really, in the moment when the thing has actually happened, if we choose to repair and to teach our children, to show them how we are humans and how we make mistakes, I don't think there's more potent teaching. Again, I am not encouraging you to on purpose be mad, but do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying protecting your children from never experiencing anger in your household is not necessarily the best parenting technique. But you can show them, when I get angry, this is what I do. Sometimes when I get angry, I can't control myself, so this is what I do after. That's the gift. That's why this work doesn't teach you to be a green zone human being all the time. That's why we all know the line. We're not human beings learning to be spiritual. We're spiritual beings learning to be human. Learning to be human means learning to become skillful with your anger. What you guys thinking? The main struggle for me is that I never allow myself to feel anger. I saw it as so destructive that I've never learned how to harness it in a healthy way. Yeah, we're going to talk about that now. That's it. I was never given the tool as a child to express anger, so I held it down. Yeah. So I'll say one more thing about anger and why it's not your fault that you never learned to do it. Anger is a red zone signal designed to let you know that you should fight, flight, or freeze. Anger is an evolutionary mechanism whose sole job, up until now, is to tell you to fight, flight, or freeze, to tell you to constrict against it, to tell you to harness your whole life force to fight, discharge, flight, or freeze in charge. So when you learn to work with anger differently in the green zone way, you are literally changing an evolutionary pattern that we don't need anymore. We're not in front of bears or ginormous snakes or mountain lions, most of us, most of the time. But when we get a signal like anger, the brain doesn't know the difference. And what it is wired to do is it's wired to constrict against it and to fight, flight, or freeze. So do you guys get it? Anger is an evolutionary response. The discharge in charge is an evolutionary response. It is meant to do that. It is not your fault. But now let's switch it. But it is your responsibility, right? It is not your fault. So stop the shaming, stop the criticism, stop the helplessness. No need for it. It's not your fault. You weren't taught. It's an evolutionary response. But it is your responsibility how to learn to use it more skillfully. So I'm going to do my best to tell you the biggest teaching, and then trusting that there will be other ways that I'll be sharing this that you will be able to get more, right? These Thursday Lives are really meant to be meta teachings of this work. So what I'm going to teach you today is how to be with anger in a green zone way. And it's called work with sensation. Some of you who've done the course already know this, but I don't think we can ever forget about it. We can ever stop learning about it. So when you start looking at emotions, think about anger, think about grief, think about joy, think about any of these emotions. Emotions are not a static, fixed thing, right? We think about it. I am angry. I am sad. It's like one word, one fixed word. And maybe if we're lucky enough, we'll move out of that fixed word, that fixed, I am angry. Maybe we'll move to, I am happy. But when you look at emotions, energy and motions, you start noticing that they're actually made up of ever-moving physiological sensations. They're not a fixed thing, which makes it hard to move, but they're made up of ever-changing and moving physiological sensations. Please write in the thread, anger. What are the physiological sensations that anger is actually comprised of? I want to not say them to you yet until you tell me what you see. Or think about sadness. If you want to write about sadness, what is it? Feel anger. What do you notice in your body? What sensations do you notice in your body? Let me know. Think of the last time that you were angry. Muscle tightness, yes. Increased heart rate, yes. Keep going. Tunnel vision, yes. And you know what I love about what you guys are describing is, do you see how smart that is for the red zone? If you're actually in danger, do you notice how these are all red zone signals, stress response signals? We're supposed to have tunnel vision. We're supposed to constrict our muscles. Tight belly and heavy heart, tight throat. Yeah, my throat often gets really tight. Yeah, same here. Constriction, throat tightening, warmth. Yeah, anger is very fiery. Constriction, tension, clenching. Fire, right? Just what I was saying. My heart speeds up. My stomach tightens, shaking. Red heat. Stomach hurts. Anger, tight stomach, blow my top, right? When you think of the scale, you're blowing the top of the triangle. Heavy breathing, aggression. Yeah, aggression is one of the actions, right? That comes from the sensations. And so the green zone way of relating to anger is you allow yourself to give space to only the sensations, naming them the way exactly you guys are naming them. My heart is racing. My stomach is constricted. My throat is tightening. My fists are clenching. I feel heat in my belly. My heart feels heavy. And you don't constrict, You keep naming, becoming present second by second by second to how the energy is moving and changing. So for example, even as I was sharing what I was sharing, my attention was being brought to other parts of my body. Like my throat is tightening, like right actually under here. Ooh, I feel the energy in my jaw. And what starts happening is when you can be with anger or really any emotions with sensations, giving them space, the green zone space at the bottom of the triangle, it's spacious. You open your riverbed to allow this rush of energy in motion to move through you, to have space. When you give it space and only name the sensations, they move. And this is so important in case you've never tried this and you might be a little apprehensive about trying this. The energy in motion, just like a river, knows what to do. If you have the courage, the discipline, the tenacity, the skill to be with the sensations and track them as they move and as they change, they might be like a wave and increase when you're really paying attention. And then suddenly you might get a break and the wave might recede. And then, oh, but when he did this, it comes back and you just track, whoa, belly, 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 belly tightening, feet getting off the ground, lifting off the ground. God, I even feel my ears tightening, the back of my scalp tightening. And you just keep doing that. And you don't say, I am angry. Because think about it. I am? No, you are not angry. The energy that we call anger, the energies that we call anger are moving through you. Yes, have they been triggered by something? Likely. It's like something triggering a flute to start playing, a conductor triggering a flute to start playing. Anger starts playing, the physiological sensations of anger start playing, moving through you. Now, unlike love, right, or gratitude or compassion, those emotions, those energy emotions, those physiological sensations, when I am open and I feel loving, like right now I'm tracking my heart softening, my hands opening, my face smiling. So even with gratitude and love, like if I stop naming it and I just share that with you, like, oh, I feel my heart softening. My eyes are lifted. It's like I can exhale. Right? What's it like to just hear me out without my having named it? I can, because often I don't have too many stories around gratitude. Now, I might want to get stuck around gratitude. But with anger, because we're talking about anger today, we have so many core beliefs about anger that when we leave this telling of the story of the sensations and like, I'm angry, what happens? Look at the difference. Then we need a story to back up why we're angry, right? Like somebody was saying earlier, then we're going to ruminate on the story. Well, I can't believe he did this. And then we get stuck in a loop of this energy in motion that just wants to be given space to move. It does not want to stay stuck in our bodies. It does not want to attack somebody else with it. It is just another form of energy that's moving through us in that specific way. How does that land, guys? What time is it? Yeah, we've got just a couple more minutes. Loud voice. Yup. My skin feels odd, different, huh? Head can feel full. Head is clear in green zone. Anger. Yeah, good one. So what would it be like to commit this week when what we call anger, you commit to working with it as sensations only. It's like meditation. Your mind will try to go back and say, but it is anger, and I am angry, that blah, 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 blah. Come back. What am I feeling in my body? Sensations can only be felt in the body. If you start going in your head into thinking, you have stopped doing the green zone work. You're back to red zone. In the body, track sensations only. And I promise you, whether it takes a minute, 5 minutes, an hour, a day, they will move eventually. And I always talk about kids. Kids, before they're taught not to feel this or that, you will see their anger, their sadness, their joy just moves. That's what we want to become like. It's not about not feeling anger. It is about allowing it to move and not get stuck in you. And maybe I'll do another live. There are times when we do this work with sensations with anger, that anger has information for us that we can just get clear with ourselves, but sometimes we need to speak to others or to do something with. We don't have time to talk about this today, but if you do it from the green zone, right? Like I've literally gone to Brian and said, oh, honey, my heart feels so constricted right now. And I just have fire in my belly. And I'm really struggling. Like I want to punch something. And what I'm realizing is I need to speak up more, or like it hurt me when you said the thing. Like sometimes the anger it's just here for us to feel it and to be complete with it. And sometimes, right? Again, think Martin Luther King, Mandela, we use that anger to change something. It gives us information about ourselves or about something about the state of the world. But if you use it from the red zone, you're going to create more red zone. If you use it from the green zone, I promise you, the Buddhists call it right action. You will know what to do and you will create a green zone action, which will create green zone reverberations. As opposed to if you act from the red zone anger, which will create red zone reverberations, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. I will work this week on sensations only. Sensations. Beautiful as sensations only, and not to say I am angry. Feels revolutionary to look at it this new way. It's revolutionary even for our brain. You know, our brain is not constructed to feel really potent sensations like anger or anxiety, right? You can do this with anxiety and not take action from it because these emotions are supposed to make us take action. So just know that. Be patient with yourself as you practice this. Be patient. Be kind. You are literally changing the evolution of our brain. And every time one of us does this work and starts rewiring the brain to be able to be with potent emotions that usually have destroyed, you are changing, you're helping change all of our planet. I believe that without a doubt. How do we stop holding on to that anger and the rumination? Go back to sensations. Go back to sensations. Rumination means you're in your mind. You have to be just with sensations and see it as moving energy that will come and go and rise and fall and eventually dissipate. Try it. It is one of the most present-based form of meditation. Requires a lot of skill because then the mind goes, yeah, but. Okay, let me come back in. Yeah, but. I'm going to come back in. Got it? Be patient. Practice. It remains stuck. You know, the other thing you can do is actually move your physical body. We're not going to have time to talk about that today. But again, Chrysanthi, my guess is that the story comes back to feed it. That's my guess. Life is so much more peaceful. My mind automatically gives me the signal to start breathing deeper and to slow down. Woof. Love right action. I know, me too. The only thing I don't like is right and wrong. It's very dualistic. But we know what we mean. What if anger has a perfectly good reason? Yes, again, you can use anger wisely. If somebody hurts you, do the work of being with the sensations and then speak up from the green zone. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about not having anger. Anger is beautiful and potent and can make us do the right thing, can make us speak up, stand up for ourselves, stand up for others. I'm talking about how do you shift it from the destructiveness of it being acted from the red zone to the power of it being used in the green zone. I hope that's good. My brain is confused. If I'm experiencing anger cells, why I'm not considered to be angry. It's not that you're not considered to be angry. I'm not sure about if I got your question right. Is that in order to, the most effective way to transform it, to allow it to move, is to go to the level below the word anger and to focus on sensations. Because anger is a box that has so many stories. It's not good, it's destructive, it's this and that. Actually, anger is made up of sensations. And when you just go at the level of sensations, the anger moves, the sensations that make up the anger. When you think only on the level, I am angry, it can't move. So that's what I'm talking about. I am to take action, I see, is the answer to that. Do I have to take action? Right. Sometimes we don't, and sometimes we do, but it is informed. You decide, you make that decision only when you're back in the green zone. Because if not, you're going to hurt something or somebody. Okay, good. I'm glad you understand. So let's close our eyes just for a minute to close this space. Noticing, what are you noticing right now in your body? What sensations are moving through? Slow everything down, slow your breathing down, and know that what I have taught you today is a lifelong skill. And as always, with anything that I teach, I just teach you what I see works for me and has worked for many, many, many others. But you are a grown-up. You get to decide what you listen to and practice and what you don't. So be curious this week. Try this out. Please ask questions in this thread and tag me if you have them, or share your triumphs. Share the small victories. Please, let's keep this thread going, because this is such a potent teaching. And even though, as I said, we just talked about anger, this is the same teaching that can be applied to every emotion. Work with sensations. Sensations will move. Sensations will dissipate, and new sensations and new emotions will have time, will have the space to come in. So taking a deep breath in, and an audible exhale, opening your eyes. And as we close the space, can you write one state of being that you're feeling right now? Could be inspired, curious, scared, frustrated, peaceful. What are some states of being? Share one state of being you feel right now. You're welcome. I feel calm and grounded. Calm, excited, peace, peaceful, calm and warm, curious to try, satisfied, gentle chest and hopeful, ready, curious, intrigued. Yeah, you're so welcome. I think this is the most, out of all the work that I teach, This is the most potent one. It's the one that liberates us the most, because turbulent emotions do so much damage when we don't know what to do with them. And this literally, you know how Marianne Williamson talks about a miracle being a shift in perception? This work, doing this, what you just learned today, creates miracles. But it's not easy. It's not easy because the mind is going to try to trick you. So just know that. Count on it. It's going to try to kidnap you back into righteousness and all the things of the ruminating mind. See you later. Really grateful for you, live or replay. Just so grateful for you. Talk to you soon.